Hey everybody, what is going on? Serial Overdrive here, and today we're going to be going over community servers for the console edition of Rust. And unlike pretty much every other video I've done, I'm not going to be complaining. I'm going to be going over exactly how these work, all the settings you've got to play with, and some really cool things that you can do with community servers that you probably didn't know you could do. So let's just jump right into it, and let's go to the basic settings. So if you own a community server, you got this status page right here that's going to show you everything being used. Don't really worry too much about this, but if you're looking to do a wipe, and this would be wiping all your saves, wipe the player blueprints, or a full wipe, this would be where you do it. I wouldn't recommend doing any of these during gameplay because players are going to get really upset if you do this, but it's completely up to you. So yeah, all your wipe settings are down there. Or at least your full wipe and your wipe player blueprints settings are right there. Now let's go to the basic settings. This is where all of the magic happens. Just like my bedroom, but let's be honest, it's probably the toilet when it comes to me. It is what it is. Anyways, let's get into it. Let's get into these server settings here. So first things first, you got server settings. So right here, this is where you put the name of your server. The only real interesting thing about this is if you notice, my server's name is going to be in red, and that's because I've got this right here. I set the color equal to red, and then over here I end the color being equal to red. If you're familiar with coding at all, you're going to recognize this. And bing bang boom, the color of the text in between these 2 points, this point and this point, so this text right here is going to be red. If I want it to be blue, all I need to do is change this red to be blue. You can also use hexadecimal. You can use hexadecimal colors, but we're not going to get into that. If you know what it is, you know what it is. If you don't really worry about it. Just go with the basic colors. You know, it's a lot to remember, right? There's like 10 different, I don't know. Anyways, that's how you do colors. Next up, we've got the password right here. I like to claim that my server has a password because its population is so low, but it actually doesn't. Next up, you've got platforms. You can set it to crossplay, Xbox, or PlayStation. If you go from crossplay only to Xbox or PlayStation purely, people are going to get very upset with you. It's not really a nice thing to do, but some people are probably going to do it anyways. Not all admins are good admins. Now you've got your welcome message. This is a message everybody sees when they first join your server. The first time joined message. The just joined message. So this would be like XXX joined the server. Then you've got the left message, the rage quit message. I actually have no idea what this is for a player rage quitting a server, but it seems a little toxic, but that's Rust. Then you've got an admin message. So this would be a message to an admin when joining. And then you've got admin broadcast. Once enabled, admin actions will be broadcasted. So basically, if the admin does something, it's going to tell everybody. You've got the enabled whitelist. Once enabled, there will be whitelist functionality in the server. And then you get some custom boot commands. So for custom boot commands, if you want to have an item banned on launch, this is where you do it. We're going to get into all those commands later, but yeah, if you wanted to ban an item on launch of a server, you can sort of put it in right here. Next up, you've got a player report cooldown. So this is just telling a player like how long they've got to wait for, to make another report, basically. Now you've got a map preset. Applying a preset here makes your server use a preset map. So there's some preset maps that basically the devs came up with. If you wanted to just use a seed, you can go down to the map settings, which is where we are now, and just type in the seed of the map that you're looking to use. If you Google Rust map seeds, you can find a lot of different services that are going to provide you with a list of map seeds. When you're looking at a map seed, try to make sure that the seed number and your world size match. So if this seed right here is for a 3-kilometer map, so I put 3,000 as the world size. You want to make sure those two match, otherwise some weird things happen. Next up, you set the max players right here, because I skipped over it, but it's pretty obvious. Here's where you can set the monuments. It's just a drop down. You select all the monuments that you want. Then you can select the offshore monuments right here, just a drop down. You select all the monuments that you want. For those of you wondering, the reason it says sorry, no matching options is because I've enabled all offshore monuments. And for land monuments, I enabled a few that I thought would be important, but not a ton of them because I don't like the land to be too cluttered. To each their own, there's some definite reasons that you shouldn't do this, but it is what I did. And for those of you looking to practice your oil rig runs or your cargo ship runs, there's always my server. It's actually a pretty low pop server right now. The active players, by the way, that count is completely off right now. There's actually 5 people playing as I'm making this video. But yeah, if you jump onto my server, serial overdrives, quad, trio, duo, solo, 2x server, just search for Serial and look for the red text. If you jump into that server, there's not really that many people online. It's a 2x server. You can get a real easy start by just running some crates, and then bing, bang, boom, you're off to the races, doing oil rig, doing cargo, practicing those runs, and getting it in so the next time you jump into a populated server, you'll be able to conquer it. Anyways, moving on. We've got world settings. So here you've got the RHIB population. This would be those like sick looking boats. I set it to 4. You get the rowboat population. This would be the number of rowboats that spawn on the server. I set it to 5. That really is pretty self-explanatory. You get the rowboat outside decay. So this would be how much these rowboats would decay when they're outside of a base, but not in deep water. So for those of you who don't know, any sort of ship, and even an RHIB, I believe, they're all going to decay unless there's cover over them. If there is not cover over the rowboats, or the RHIBs, I'm pretty sure, I haven't actually confirmed this to be honest, but I'm pretty sure they decay. But yeah, if there's no cover over the boats, they're going to decay. This is where you set the amount of time that they decay. When you're setting decay, when you're setting the population, do note that this all does contribute to lag. So if you're looking to run a really busy server, which probably most of us are, I was, to be honest, it's not the busiest server, I've got to admit where I failed. Seems like I'm not doing bad. Like, we've got a really decent pop. It's a really good community. I love all the people in there. We're getting along just fine. Someone raided my base, but it's cool. But yeah, like, it's a really good community, but it's not a huge server. There's not 100 people online. It's not popping off. But yeah, if you get a server that's popping off, if you got all sorts of monuments, clans, all sorts of crazy stuff going on, maybe you want to set that decay down or set the population down. This is actually going to help with lag. Then you've got the deep water decay. I set this lower because once a boat's left out there, I figure no one's going to go and get it. And then you've got the start decay delay. So this would be how many minutes goes after a rowboat was last used and then decay starts. So yeah, if you set it to 0, the thing's going to start decaying instantly. If you set it to 1,000,000, it's never going to decay. So if you want to make boats that don't decay, that would be how you do it. The problem with that is going to be, you know, people that keep buying boats, and as time goes on, there's gonna be some stability issues if you have a really busy server and a lot of people are buying boats. Next up, you've got stability. So this would be for structures. If you don't want structures to collapse, you can disable stability. Radiation, you can turn that on or off. Progress time, so this would be just time if you want to freeze time. So if you want a server where it's always daylight, you can just stop the progress of time and it's always going to be daylight out. The sun's not going to go anywhere. You can make it sunset, whatever. Anyways, next up, you've got the day length. So I set this to 45, and the night length, I set it to 3. So the reason I did this is I really don't like nights, but I feel like they're sort of important to Rust. Like, it's good to have a little bit of a night, some sort of progression of time period. So short night, decent day. I figured that was a good trade-off. Now let's get into NPCs. So NPC think, so this would make NPCs actually move. If you want the NPCs to just stand and do absolutely nothing, you can just disable that, and NPCs are just going to be bots that people can use for target practice. They're not even going to move, they're not going to shoot back. Great. This NPC navigation, this makes NPCs move. So you can enable this and disable this, and then you got NPCs that'll shoot back but won't move or do anything. You can do this and they're going to ignore players. Junk pile spawn chance, the probability that junk pile will spawn. You got bear population. Actually, this one, I'm not 100% sure what this is. Like junk pile spawn chance. It seems a little weird. I don't know if this is a 1 to 100 type thing or if this is a 0 to 1 type thing. It would be nice if they clarified on this. If you go to the drop down right here, doesn't really help in my opinion. So yeah, that would be nice to get some clarification on, because I played around with it. I'm not 100% sure what it does. I feel like setting it to 1 was a good call, but I don't exactly know what it does. Let's be honest here. Maybe someone's listening from D11 and they can comment down below. I'd love it. I'll pin your comment. Anyways, next you've got the bear population. How many bears you want to spawn? The boar population, the chicken population, the stag population. These would be known as deer to a lot of people. The horse population and the wolf population. These things, you can set them to be whatever you want, but the higher they are, the more they're going to lag your server. And again, these things don't seem like much. Like, adding an extra wolf isn't really a big deal, but if you add 1,000,000 of them, it's going to be a crazy server, and things are going to get weird. Things are going to get weird, and there's going to be a lot of lag. And to be honest, I am now 100% tempted to do that. I'm not going to do it because the people on my server, I know there's at least like 100 people who've actually jumped in and tested out the server. they probably wouldn't come back if they jump in again and there's a million wolves running around. Anyways, let's keep going on. We've got some player settings here. So here you've got an immortal server, so you'd set this, players couldn't take damage. On the other hand, if you just wanted PvE, you could set this, and then what's going to happen is the server is a PvE server, which means players can't take damage from other players. I believe this also disables raiding. I could be wrong on that. Infinite ammo, this is going to give players infinite ammo. Full starting magazine, this lets players start with a full magazine. So basically, yeah, that's nice, you know, like if you got some sort of PvP server, you can probably want players starting with a full starting magazine. Next up, you've got the max health for players. This is just players max health. Then you've got a player's max starting health and a player's min starting health. So if you set this to 60 and 50 as is sort of originally done, the player's going to start anywhere from between 60 and 50 health. Personally, I like things to be as fair as possible, so everybody starts with 60 health. Next up, you've got the max team size, and then over here you've got limit building authorizations, limit turret authorizations, and limit team locks. So what this is going to do is this is going to only enable so many people to be allowed on the tool cupboard, and that's going to be related to your max team size. This does the same thing, but for turrets. And then for team locks, this means that code locks are disabled and team locks work for the whole team. So if you're in a team and you have a team lock and you place a lock, anyone on that team can then use that lock. If someone's not on the team, they won't be able to use that lock. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Now let's go over to items. So this would be no starting items. This would be players start with no items. This would enable Builder's Paradise items. This would be for build servers. This would enable target practice items. So this would be for target practice servers. Next up, you've got free crafting, which means players could craft anything for free. Instant crafting, which means crafting can happen instantly. And then you can also set this to unlock all blueprints. So yeah, basically these are all pretty self-explanatory, but yeah, if you want to do anything with like a build server, a PvP server, a server where players can just jump in, craft whatever they want and go, this is sort of where you go to do that. Again, if you're looking for any sort of longevity with the server, I wouldn't recommend enabling any of these. Maybe instant crafting would work, maybe unlocking all blueprints would work, but honestly, I wouldn't recommend doing any of these. It sort of takes away, in my opinion, from a lot of what Rust is, and it hurts the server long term, I think. Next up, let's go to workbench overrides. So this would be a workbench override. So basically, if you want players to be able to craft, level 1 items without a level 1 workbench, you can set it to 1. This is going to go up to 3. If you set it to 3, players can craft anything without a workbench. So if you wanted to do instant crafting, workbench of 3, free crafting, and then players spawn with nothing, players are going to be able to spawn in, create whatever kit they want, and go nuts. Stackable size scale, so this would scale the amount of items that can be stacked. So basically, if you want more items to be stacked together, this would be how you do it. Next up, you've got the gather scale. So if you're looking for 2x server, this would be where you do that. So you can see mine's a 2x server. And then for the loot scale, this would be where you scale the amount of loot received. So if you wanted to be like a true 2x server where players are looting 2x of everything, then maybe you'd make the loot scale being 2x. Personally, I like resources being 2x, but not the loot being 2x. Maybe I'm just a bit of a boomer here. Maybe I'm like that dude that just... we're not going to go into it. But yeah, I feel like the loot should be 1 and the gather skill should be 2. Next up, you've got disable item damage. So items aren't going to lose health anymore. Items aren't going to decay anymore. This, I was tempted to do this because it is annoying when your item decays and you just can't use it anymore. But at the same time, I'm like, it's not Rust without a little bit of item decay. And how many of us are good enough to actually keep an item the full length of the decay? If I'm being 100% honest, that happens with me when I'm using a rock or I'm using a hatchet. Otherwise, I'm probably going to get looted and scooted before that ever happens. And if we're being completely honest, if I've got an AK, I'm probably going to get shot before I even get 2 shots off. It is what it is. It's not a skill issue. It's a server issue, maybe. Possibly, that's what I'm going to claim. Anyways, let's move on. Next up, you've got helicopters. You can enable, you've got events. So this would be enabling the helicopter to target players. If you don't want helicopters to mess with players, you can do this. Here you've got the helicopter bullet accuracy, helicopter damage scale. So if you're a real sort of masochist, you can just set this to 100, and helicopters are going to one-shot people. It's going to be rather annoying. No one's going to stay on your server, but you're going to get some lulls in, especially if you enable this all of a sudden. Anyways, next up, you've got the Bradley. So here you go, Bradley respawn delay. I set this to 60. You can set it to whatever you want. Lock crate decay. You can set this to whatever you want. Lock crate time to unlock. So yeah, basically you can enable the Bradley, and then you can set how long it takes to unlock crates and how long it takes for crates to decay. Crate decay time, again, you're going to want to keep that in mind, because if you've got a very unpopulated server, it can look a little bit weird when people log in and there's just a ton of crates. So maybe for a server like mine, you'd want to set it down. I'm being 100% honest. My server, it doesn't have the highest population. I'd appreciate it if people join, but it is what it is. And, you know, sort of a chill server. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm actually having a lot more fun with it than I thought I would. So maybe I don't want you to join. Now, let's move on to gameplay. So, first off, you got building demolish times. This would be the amount of times in seconds before building cannot be demolished anymore. So if you set this to 1,000,000, again, then players are going to be able to demolish buildings at will, or at least the owners of a building are going to be able to do that at will. So that is one that I played around with, because that would be really nice. And if you just want to make it so that they can do that, you can do this demolish hammer. So once enabled, player hammers can freely demolish their own structure. So basically, this is one of those things. I've got a video with over 500,000 views about how to destroy your own wall in Rust. It is a really annoying thing, and the fact that you can enable it so people don't have to deal with that annoyance is amazing. I'd almost recommend doing this. One of those things that I probably should check this box, because yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. I sort of get it, because it can get annoying during a raid if someone can just build all this crazy stuff and then come by and just demolish it freely. So I did leave it unchecked, but I get that urge. I get that urge. I have that urge, and you know, once a day I like to exercise it. Anyways, then you've got free upgrading. Once enabled, players can upgrade building blocks for free. You got free construction, so players can build for free. For build servers, these two are great. Bullet damage, this is the amount of bad damage that bullets do. Bleeding damage, the amount of damage that bleeding does. Arrow damage, melee damage. Then you've got the decay scale, and this would be the amount of decay building blocks have. And then this is where you have upkeep. So you could disable upkeep, or you could slow down decay. Again, one of the things I keep talking about this. I'm a bit like a broken record, a bit like a boomer here, talking about Trump or talking about Biden or whatever, politics in general. But no, like, if you do this, it's going to make your server lag more if you've got a lot of people. If you got a low pop server, if it's just you and a couple of the boys, you know, have at it. Take the decay off. You can spend a little bit more time in the closet with your boys, a little less time playing Rust. Now, if you really want to mess with people, you can set the arrow damage to 100 or do something whack like that. No one's probably going to notice for a little bit, especially if you only set it up by a little bit. But this is one way that you can make it a little bit more interesting, right? If you want to push people to do melee more, you can up the melee damage, right? You can make melee damage 25 or something like that. And now what's going to happen is, all of a sudden you've added a whole new dynamic to the game. Instead of people going for guns, maybe they're going for just, you know, melee weapons. One thing I don't know about is how melee attacks work if you throw the weapon at someone. I should play with that, but I'm not going to, because if we're being honest, I'm a bit lazy. Then you've got upkeep grief protection. So this would mean if the tool cupboard's destroyed, this would change the amount of time the upkeep resources last before disappearing. So yeah, if a tool cupboard's destroyed, for those of you who don't know, resources are pulled out of that tool cupboard, and then they are put into the base. So the base won't decay right away. This sets the amount of time that that's for. Decay tick, so this would change the amount of upkeep needed for building blocks. So right here. And then you've got code lock max failed attempts. This doesn't really matter on my server because there's no code locks. And then a code lock cooldown. And that is all of the stuff that you can access from this panel, but there's a few other things we've got to go into. So first off, you've got your logs here. Most of you probably aren't going to bother reading this, but if you're looking to see sort of how things work, who got killed by who, you can actually go in here and see some of that stuff. So you can see like what was killed. This would be a resource name, but if you do see a person that was killed, you can probably go in there and see that. A lot of it's just scientists getting murked, and you know, scientists aren't that good. They get killed a lot in this game, so these logs really aren't worth reading through in my opinion, but you can always download them. You can search through them. So if there's an issue with like one of your mods possibly killing someone that they shouldn't have, you can go in and look through that. You can see what's going on. Now, next up, you've got the console, and here's where we're going to talk about mods and everything like that. So if you're looking to set yourself as the owner, here's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to type in owner, ID, and then you're going to space, and then inside of two parentheses like this, you're going to type in your name. And the reason I use those parentheses is because otherwise spaces don't work. So just get in the habit of using them. It's going to make life easier. You're going to be doing the same thing for admin, VIP, and everything like that. So instead of owner ID, use admin ID, and bing, bang, boom. Again, same for moderators or for VIPs. While we're here, let's go over how to actually properly ban an item, because I've seen a lot of people having trouble with this. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to type ban item, space, and then you put the parentheses right in here. But then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to type no crafting. And this is going to make it so the item can't be crafted. So this is going to ban that item. I'm not actually going to do it because that would be bad. At least for the people playing my server it would be. Next up, after you banned it from being crafted, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make it so the item doesn't spawn. So you're going to type ban item and then no item spawn. So just like that, you've now banned the item from spawning and banned the item from being crafted. And that right there is how you ban an item. I've noticed a lot of people having issues with that, a lot of people asking questions about it. It is very convoluted, but yeah, that's how you're doing it. And you can see right here, the command came back, item is incorrect. Is the item name correct? If you're looking for the item names, you're going to have to go into your console, you're going to go into your admin panel, and then there's going to be a list of all the items and all of their names. So let's jump over to that right now. So now we are in the admin panel. You're going to go to your admin panel right here, and the first thing you've got is an options panel and an inbox panel. So if you go to your inbox, this is where you can actually go and see reports if anyone's been reported. Notice too, if you click that left bumper, you can see reports that were closed. So if you've got a moderator that might be doing something they're not supposed to, maybe they're going to close a report and not really let you know what's going on, you can actually go and view those closed reports and then kick the admin for admin abuse. It happens, and honestly, if you're the owner of a server, make sure you keep an eye on this, because that's one of the worst things that can happen to a server, and it is completely unacceptable for someone that owns a server, or even an admin to do this, but someone who owns a server to let this go on and not take action against the admins. So this is also where you can go in and do something to a player, where you could just go ahead and make an action report to ban a player, but I wouldn't recommend doing that, because a lot of the time people get killed, they get a little bit feisty, they get a little bit racist maybe, and we've all had that happen. I'm not saying I've been racist, but I've had people be racist to me. Anyways though, you want to track the players. Let's go over how to do that. So first off, you got a bunch of helicopter spawn commands. You can broadcast a message. So if you want to tell all your boys what's up, this is where you do it. Then you've got the admin control panel. Let's open that, because that's the more interesting part. You got God mode, that's going to make you invincible. Vanish mode, that's going to make you invisible. And then no clip mode, that is going to make it so you can go through walls. These are all really great options if you want to just fly around the server and do whatever you want. Next up, you've got the server time. This is pretty obvious. You can set the time to anywhere on the clock. You're not on Jupiter, so you can't really set it to 1,000,000, but you can set it up to 23. Spectate, this is an interesting option. This is where you can actually spectate players. Now let's go ahead and spectate a player. So right here you can see I'm spectating a player. This player is just running around. If you use your right bumper, you can actually change the views. So here you can see I'm viewing this player in third person, but you can also go down and spectate the person to see exactly what they're doing. This is where you can sort of see people who are cheating a lot of the time. If you see someone playing with no recoil, this is how you're going to catch them, right? You've just got to follow them. You got to watch them get into a gunfight and see what happens. Now, let's go back into the admin panel. Let's go into the admin controls right here. And now let's go to the open item list panel. So if you go here, this is going to be a list of all items that are available in the game. So from here, you can see all of the items, and this is how you're going to be able to spawn items in. So you can go to that item, and you've got a few options. You can give one item to yourself, give the max stack of that items to yourself, or you can give one of those items to everybody, or give the max stack of those items to everybody. To the best of my knowledge, unless you're using console commands, you can't customize and just set a number that you want to give to people. Either give one or give all. Like give a full stack. Now, let's go back into the admin panel. Let's go into the admin controls, and let's go to open command list. So this would be a list of all the commands that you can run. So if you're looking for commands that you can run, like if you're looking to ban an item, this would be how you do it. So if you go here, you can do craft.ban item, and that would ban an item. You can list the ban items. There's a lot of great commands you can do here. Now, the last thing you can do on the admin panel is to view the console output. I wouldn't recommend doing this on your Xbox or PlayStation. do that on the G Portal website, and that is a complete overview of all the options that you get with community servers. If this guide helped, if you got any questions, if you got any tips, make sure you post them down below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully, I'll see you in my server. If I don't, make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest and greatest of Serial Overdrive. Until next time, peace.